Hi everybody! Good morning! Do you like how my coffee cup has an A on it? It's actually so cute! How are you all doing today? You can kind of hear some birds behind me. This is an absolutely beautiful area, so I thought I'd share it with you guys. I'm a little tired today. I stayed up somewhat late last night watching some YouTube videos with my dad and playing a video game with my brother. We play Poppy Playtime together. It's such a good game. I love puzzle games and I love scary things. And yes, I get very scared by Poppy Playtime. It can be very intense. Those chase sequences don't even get me started, and my brother likes to tease me because I cannot locate the right lever to pull even when it's glowing red, so Are any of you living somewhere where it's super snowy right now? Maybe somewhere where it's not even close to snowy? Where I live, the snow should be coming somewhat soon. It might snow really hard in January. But a slim chance of a white Christmas, I'd say. So today, I'm going to be outlining a story because I absolutely love to write, and now that it's winter break for me, I can do some more writing. So I'm trying to outline kind of a new story. Nice blank page. Okay, so I have somewhat of a process when I outline. So I like to kind of separate into characters, but I don't have my characters yet. But I like doing characters first. What am I gonna do? Okay, let me tease out a plot. So this part will be for the plot. This is hard. So I basically wrote the first 5-6 pages of this when I went on a little hike about 2 months ago. And I was just feeling really inspired where it was. And I really like it. I think it could definitely turn into something that really works. I've started a lot of projects. I finished a couple projects and nothing really has stuck so far with me. Nothing's really resonated a lot with anybody else. So we can hope this is the one. So yes, essentially what happened is that I was struck by a moment of inspiration and I took the moment, but that means that I do not have a plot fleshed out. I really don't have anything fleshed out. So I'm going to try to do that here with you guys today. So I have a page for plot, and then this page can be for, this will be characters part 1. Okay, and in characters part 1, let's write out what I might want to do here. So 1, let's think of, you know what, names should come later, I think. So we'll think of just general profile, like, what does this person look like? What are their general traits? And then along with that, we can give them a personality type. I love personality types, like the Myers-Briggs test and the Enneagram. My favorite things to do, I swear. I know. Okay. Personality types. And then, let's see. Myers-Briggs and Enneagram. Okay, number 3. So a system I like to use, I cannot remember where I heard it from, but it is, you give your character a want, a need, a ghost, and a lie. So the want is just something that they think they need. The need is something that they actually need, and usually that's something that sort of comes to fruition by the end of the novel. So that's like a character arc thing where you start with want and you end with need. And then the ghost is something in the character's past. It basically dictates kind of what their motivation is, I'd say. Kind of allows you to like disentangle character motivations, which I feel like that can be one of the hardest things about writing characters, making sure they have airtight motivation. And I always admire that when characters have that in movies, shows, books. And then the lie is something that is preventing the character from making that arc from what they want to what they need. Something that they believe that is not true or that is holding them back. So it's a pretty cool system. So that'll be what I do after personality types, is want, need, ghost, and lie. And then we can think about names, actually. Okay. And then, let's have a page for setting. Where I was, the setting literally inspired me to start writing this. So the setting's like the one thing that I kind of have down, but there's going to be more places than just that place. And I need to flesh out areas within that place and the like. So maybe give the place a name, figure out what the place's character is. My dad told me that in the movie Collateral with Jamie Foxx and Tom Cruise, the city of Los Angeles is a place. I also think it has Jada Pinkett Smith. The city of Los Angeles is a character, and you get kind of a lot of overhead shots of the streets and the city itself and all the traffic and stuff at the beginning of the movie, and it sort of establishes that character for you. So ever since my dad said that, I've sort of taken that a little bit to heart with my own writing. And then also there's a thing called like set pieces in stories where it's sort of a specific thing that is an area where characters are, that facilitates the story or that has a character of its own. So think the bus in the movie Speed, which is one of my favorite movies ever. So I can put a little thing about set pieces there, probably. Okay. Maybe names of places. Okay. So, and I'm also just gonna have a copy of this on digital. Some nice typing sounds. The laptop is so cold. Story outlining. Okay, perfect. And then we will put the chair over there is like popping and it keeps freaking me out. Like, who is over there? I'm so sorry. Okay, plot. And then we have characters. Got some dogs barking. Setting. General profile. Personality types. Want, need, ghost, lie, and names. And then setting, of course, we have the character of the place, set pieces, and names. Okay. Okay, I think we need to get a little bit more of an outline written down for the plot portion. Okay, so plot, approaching plot. Okay, wait. I have an idea. I think I'm gonna have another page dedicated to storyboarding, actually. Storyboarding, which is where we can kind of tease out like when certain scenes are happening and what those scenes are and what they mean for the characters, how they influence character motivation, which is a very important component of plot. Okay, so I'm just gonna start jotting things down and I'm gonna see where it takes me. All right. thinking about incorporating something from the one full-length novel I've written, which did not turn out well at all. But there was one idea I had in there that was kind of cool, so I might incorporate that. Okay. Let's see. this is the challenge. It's coming up with something different. I suppose sometimes, perhaps the correct way to go about it is to only start the writing process once you have the something different in mind, and that acts as your inspiration. I don't think it has to be that way. It just makes it a little bit more difficult to distinctify your story. Okay. I also don't want to go overboard with incorporating ideas from other stories, because what if I want to make those stories flourish in their own right? The character profile is fairly bare for both the characters, just because it's only based off of looks right now, but I've moved on to the personality types. So I've done the Myers-Briggs. The first one is ENFJ, and the second one is ISTP. Now I'm on to Enneagram, which is a little bit harder. Enneagram is based on your character's intrinsic fears and intrinsic motivations. So, for example, if your intrinsic fear is imperfection, you'd be a 1. If your intrinsic fear is not being needed, you'd be a 2, and it kind of goes on like that. So I have to figure out what each of them is. I'm going to write down a list of candidate types and then choose from there, I think. So that's 2 candidate types for each, 1 and 2, and then 5 and 8. Okay, so the 1 is kind of like the reformer, very idealistic, oftentimes very practical, but quite compassionate, hardworking, tend to be rule followers, but can be really good leaders. 2s, again, greatest fear is not being needed, super compassionate, they're the helpers. Oftentimes they don't look after themselves enough. And then for the other character, 5s are, their greatest fear is not being competent. They tend to be quite observant, tend to be fairly logical. They tend to be really good scientists. 8s are kind of like the leader, or the person who their greatest fear is not being in control or losing control. 8s can be kind of combative. It can often be their way or the highway, but they can be really, really good leaders. Okay, interesting. I kind of want to add a 3rd candidate type to each. Hey, baby. Little cat over here. Hi, sweetheart. Hi, sweetie. You want to come up here? You want to come here? No? You just hanging out? Another candidate type. I think it would just help to flesh out the idea of the characters a little bit more. Okay, I'm adding 4 to the first one. I'm actually going to add 7 to the second one. The first one in theory could be a 9, I guess. So I'll add that as a 4th option. And then the second one, if I was to add a 4th option, I don't want to have them all be strictly non-overlapping, so they could overlap with a number, a candidate number. But would they? I don't know if they would. 3 and 6 are the only ones not on my list, so that's okay, we can keep them off. Okay, now to actually choose. I'm going to write down a list of traits that have to do with each of these candidate types, and then we can kind of choose from there. So for one, idealistic. Perfectionist. And then for 2, helper, compassionate, for 4, the need to be unique, the need to have a distinct identity. So I'll put identity focused there. 9 is fear of confrontation, non-confrontational, oftentimes resentful. Okay, and then we'll put a little section on kind of some drawbacks of the type. So 1 would be guilt. 2 would be ignorance, ignoring your own needs. Ignorance and projection. 4 would be envy, pride, and 9 would be resentment, judgment. Okay. So for the other person, okay, 5, competent, scientific. 8, controlling, domineering. 7, the 7's greatest fear is missing out, fear of missing out. Pleasure seeking. Okay, and then some flaws or just negative drawbacks. I think for 5s, one of the things is sort of a coldness, a logical coldness. What word would I use for that? I'm just going to put down coldness because that's the thing that's resonating with me the most when I think about it. But also, like, the internal turmoil of a 5 can be pretty intense when you see yourself as incompetent. Self-hatred, maybe. Okay. 8s. I'd say a certain rage. And a certain pride. And then for 7s, it would be fear. Fear's a big one. And then like gluttony, sloth, just sort of a desire for pleasure above all else. I'm not saying all 7s are that way, but that's kind of the archetype. Okay, let's circle some of these traits. For the first one, I'm going to circle idealistic. I'm going to circle resentful. I feel like that's a really interesting character trait to unpack. I think that could lead to a lot of cool stuff. Projection as well. That's really cool. Judgment. Okay, interesting. For the second one, I'm going to circle domineering, coldness, pride, sloth. So interestingly enough, I actually circled 4 for each. So for the first one, I circled idealistic, resentful, projection, and judgment. And then for the second one, I circled domineering, coldness, pride, sloth. Okay, that's hard because there's literally, for the second one, there's literally something circled for every single potential type. And then for the first one, there's something circled for 3 of the potential types. That's a little hard. Oh no, for only 2. Only 2. Okay. Ooh, wait a second. Guilt is a good one. Shit. I'm gonna circle that one. Okay, a little bit difficult. Let's see what meshes best with their Myers-Briggs. So the ENFJ, which is the first one, is sort of an idealistic, altruistic, charismatic, compassionate, follow-through, initiative type person. A bit more imaginative than grounded, I'd say. Sometimes lacking in common sense. I mean, not an intense lack, but just a lack. For the second one, ISTP, more like a see it to believe it type person, a little bit more reclusive, very observant, logical, utilitarian, hard-headed, resourceful, and down to earth. So they are exact opposites in terms of the Myers-Briggs. You guys should all take the test. It's literally so cool. I love it so much. I can talk more about it if you guys want later. In terms of meshing these with types from my Enneagram list, I'd say the idealistic one really meshes. I think the judgment meshes really well as well. And then for the second one, coldness really meshes. Sloth, not necessarily. I might cross that one out. I think it's kind of unnecessary, actually, for this character. And pride, you know, I'm going to cross that out with a wavy line. I just think that ISTPs aren't super... I don't think they're super concerned with their self-image, you know? Like, I'm going to write that down. But what if I want my character to be concerned with their self-image? But then I feel like they'd be more like a 1 through 4 type. No, I think I want the first one to be a bit more concerned with their self-image. Okay, so this number 2 is gonna be a 5. Circle the 5. Just to figure out what the first one's going to be. You know what, let's go with 1. I'm a 1. I know a lot about 1s, so it'll be a bit more intuitive for me to write about. Okay. let's put this all down on the sheet. But I'm gonna keep the traits that I circled regardless of whether they contribute to the type that I chose. Alright, and then the ISTP, see it to believe it, observant. It's actually kind of funny because I think 1 and 5 are kind of the types that are like the obvious choices for ENFJ and ISTP, so I think it definitely meshes really well, which it doesn't have to. Not everybody's Myers-Briggs has to mesh with your Enneagram. Mine doesn't. I'm a 1, but I'm an ENFP. Doing this just really helps me get into the head of my characters so that it's not me writing them, it's me as them writing them. And I think that gives the whole thing just a much more authentic feel. Okay. Now we're gonna go back to, we have Enneagram. It is hard though to like get in the head of somebody else. Okay. We have 1. I'm gonna first go through all of my types so that I know what types I was considering, but I'm going to highlight 1. And okay, now let's go into character number 2, and our choices here were 5, 8, and 7. Okay. Okay, sweet. Want, need, ghost, and lie. Okay, want for character A. Oh, okay, this is hard. This part is really hard. Actually, the want and need should probably come after the ghost and the lie. Okay, ghost. I don't want to just throw something in there like, oh, this character has a parent who passed away in this horrible way, so now that, I don't want it to be arbitrary. What shapes you? What shapes your fears, your motivations? In reality, there are so many things that shape those aspects of ourselves, but we can often trace the very the very salient aspects of ourselves to a handful of specific events, I think, in our life, or specific things about our lives, about our childhoods, maybe. Whether it's an example set by a parent, or a traumatic event, or an event that offered positive reinforcement, or sort of a longitudinal pattern of things that made you into who you are today. A new page for this. Characters continued. Oh. Okay, this character is pretty in touch with their emotions, but they're a little bit less in touch than they think they are. They kind of have an idea of who they are, so that's their lie. Let me write down their lie. It's a self-image lie. and the misconception that they are very in touch with their emotions and those of others. That's projection. Okay. So what causes this lie? What has spurred this in this person? A masked feeling of intellectual and emotional superiority. Whereas character B doesn't have to mask that to themselves. They just know it. But there's the difference between 1s and 5s, I guess. Okay. A bit of a more charmed existence and development could lead to this sense of pride. With positive reinforcement that can kind of serve to make them a bit more idealistic in turn, so that works. I feel like this person has oldest child syndrome. Okay, so perhaps it's something to do with caring for siblings, understanding responsibility inherently, okay, that's a good start. Okay. You know what, before I go on to the want and need of this character, I'm gonna do the same thing for the other character. Ghost and lie. Okay. It kind of helped for me to start with lie for the last characters. Maybe I could do the same for this one. So for the first character, who is naturally a bit more preoccupied with their self-image, it was this idea of who they were, who they are, that kind of serves as a misconception. Perhaps this could be an idea of who others are. A kind of judgment that is masked by self-confidence, I'd say. There's really no need for projection. Or so they think. I'd say for this person, there is no change that they see that needs to occur within themselves. Whereas for the first person, since they're so in touch with their emotions, they are kind of always looking for room for growth, which is a very easy way to keep the character arc from moving along. It's an easy blockage for that, which creates plot. I want to make it more nuanced, but this is, again, a good place to start. This could be, this could be a defense mechanism. and a result of a bit of a harder upbringing. Bit more fend for themselves. Sort of an everyman for himself attitude because of whatever happened or whatever pattern established itself. I think this would be better for pattern, just like the last one. I just think it really ingrains these traits into the person. A pattern does. This, oh, very instinctive, I'd say. Let me just write that in the traits again. Instinctive. Okay. Okay. Instinct is a necessity. Constant danger, perhaps. So, interestingly enough, it kind of seems like our first character has been so preoccupied with others their whole life that they begin to project that onto themselves, while the second character has been so preoccupied with themselves their whole life out of necessity that they project that onto others when the SHIT hits the fan. Okay, I'm gonna create a concrete ghost for this character and then I'm gonna stop for today. Well, I'm gonna type it out first. Okay, ghost. So we have a pattern of self-preservation, survival instincts. Nobody's really taking care of this person. As a child. Perhaps their parental figures are more preoccupied with other things or other children. Or there are no parental figures involved. Oh, I have an idea. So the character, let's see, the character is very opposed to this idealism of the first character. And perhaps it's because their parents were so caught up in a movement, this movement that they never cared for their child. That's a really good thought. I love that. Okay, so leaving them to fend for themselves. perception, I'm putting this in the lie section, perception of idealism as unnecessary and even harmful. Okay, let's write it down on the computer. Okay. Perhaps the first one also has a misconception that they can make more of an impact than they actually can. Like a little bit of a I'm more important than I really am type thing. Misconception that they are very in touch with their emotions and those of others. Projection. Masked feeling of intellectual / intuitive / emotional superiority. Which is like masked by compassion and do-goodedness. Okay, idea of who others are. Others are inferior. Judgment, masked by self-confidence. notes. Okay, that is it for today. I still have want and need for each character, as well as names, and then fleshing out the setting as a character, set pieces, and storyboarding. So we can do that later maybe. Thank you guys for hanging out with me this morning. I hope that you have had a lovely day and that you sleep so well tonight. This was really fun. Thanks for helping to motivate me to work on my story. Okay, I love you guys. Bye.